I played over 40 games in the last year and not a single one came out in 2025, and here's why. I have a lot of games already, both physical and on Steam, that are clogging up my metaphorical backlog. Instead of trying to keep up with the new releases, it was time to start playing what I already had. With this backlog continuing to haunt me throughout the years, I started to make a point to start chipping away at the ever-growing pile of games to play. That and new releases just aren't worth the $80 price tag. Just give me Ninja Gaiden for $10 instead, I'm happy with that. So with that being said, here's the insane year that I had in 2025. But be warned, if you're someone who gets triggered at people not finishing games, then get ready to be pissed. January, the month from hell. January starts off a bit light on games because I had to work an insane amount of hours from early January to mid-February. One day I'm wrapping up at 9 PM at night, then the next day, I'm logging off at midnight. So with that being said, what better way to relax than continuing a few JRPGs that I started in 2024, those games being Persona 3 Reload and Star Ocean Till the End of Time. At this point, I'm more than halfway through both of these games, so getting immersed is pretty easy. The repeating calm nature of Persona helps give my mind some peace and structure during this period of chaos. But as I got closer to the end of the game, I shifted my focus to Star Ocean Till the End of Time. Star Ocean continued to be a point of comfort since it's a game I have a lot of nostalgia for, despite all of its flaws. These two games did a lot to carry my mental state during this period, but near the end of the month, a friend of mine needed a place to crash for the night for personal reasons. That night, we sat down on the couch with a few drinks and played a handful of games while talking about how shit our current life circumstances were. Even in the darkest of times, we were able to leave our problems at the door that night while booting up Resident Evil 2, Clock Tower 2, and Super Ghosts and Ghouls, passing the controller back and forth like the old days. Even as an adult, sometimes all you need to bring yourself back from a dark place is a night of gaming on the couch with some friends. It didn't matter that we didn't get past the first stage of Ghosts and Ghouls, or that the started files for Resident Evil or Clock Tower might not be continued, but what mattered is that we had fun. February. Abandoned games. The first half of February was more of the same, with my time finishing up Star Ocean's main campaign in one of the bonus dungeons. It's crazy to think that I abandoned this game halfway through nearly a year ago, and I'm now just finishing it up. Aside from Star Ocean, Persona 3 was played sparingly throughout the month, with it getting picked up later in the year. This mainly happened because Persona games tend to be a lot more stressful near the end, needing to plan out every move because there's not enough in-game days to max out every social link that you're going for. So, to take a break from that, I picked up Parasite Eve 2, a strange blend of horror and RPG mechanics that Square has long forgotten about. The game has enemy encounters where you fight in a set environment, whether it be an open field or a tight, windy corridor. Tank controls are present and they feel pretty good all things considered. A mix of survival horror shooting mechanics combined with real-time RPG spells makes this game a breath of fresh air to play by blending my two favorite genres together. It was a nice change of pace to sit down and thoroughly enjoy this game, but as much as I've enjoyed this masterpiece, game abandonment struck when I just stopped playing it for some reason. Why did I do this? I don't know. Will I finish it in 2026? I plan to, but no promises. March. Just try to have fun. After the insane last 2 months I had with my personal life, you'd think that March would be where I'd start picking up games more, but instead I've only played one new game this month, that being Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. After exclusively playing RPGs with heavy subject matters, like war and the never-ending march towards death, I felt like I needed to go back to basics. Now playing Sonic Adventure 2, I get to run through stages in a matter of minutes at breakneck speeds, shoot robots, and go treasure hunting. This is the type of gameplay that I used to find fun when I was a kid, and even today in 2025, it's still just as fun. It feels so weird playing a Sonic game like this now in 2025 with how short and digestible the levels are. Compared to the other games I've played so far this year, it doesn't feel like I need to carve out at least an hour to make booting up the game feel worth it. Until I got to the end though. The last episode of the game after beating both campaigns involves playing 6 stages, one for each character, back to back. You only get one set of lives, so a game over at any point sets you back to the beginning. After getting a game over a few times on an underwater section with Knuckles, I just stopped playing. You can say that I'm rage quitting, which, let's be honest, I kinda am. I can at least say that I beat this game as a kid, which I'm fine with for now. Will I finish it in 2026? Probably. I just need to figure out how to beat this section. Oh, and one other reason why March was pretty light on games, plans for me to move from the East Coast to the West Coast were in motion at the time. More on that soon. April. Finding that special game and saying goodbye. Entering the month of April, my regularly scheduled quarterly work was here, which meant a 3-week sprint at work was staring me down. Luckily, most quarterly weeks end up being more like 50-hour work weeks versus the hell I went through in January. The first game I jumped into was Devil May Cry 1 on Steam. I realized growing up I've only played Devil May Cry 2 and 3, so why not try the first game? More than anything, the boss fights are what got me hooked with how fluid yet punishing each fight was. Somewhere in the midst of this, I had the urge to play some old Mega Man, which honestly was kind of a mistake. As much as I like Mega Man as a whole, I wasn't gelling with it that night and felt more frustrated than anything. I thought out of all games that classic Mega Man was a smart way to take a break from Devil May Cry. In hindsight, that was kind of a stupid idea. Ultimately though, I did take a hiatus from Devil May Cry after getting stuck on some platforming section in Mission 15. Will I finish it in 2026? Who knows? This only covers the first 2 weeks of the month, with work and figuring out moving logistics in between. After sitting in front of my Steam library for what felt like an eternity, something possessed me to boot up Resident Evil Remake for the first time. Now this is one of those horror games I only ever watched my brother play as a kid, since I wasn't really old enough to start venturing into horror games until Resident Evil 4 came out. At this point, most of my survival horror experiences come from Silent Hill, which is known for being a lot easier compared to Resident Evil. From the moment I started playing, I was absolutely hooked. For the next 2 weeks, my life was going to work, packing boxes, and playing Resident Evil Remake. As you can tell, I don't stay committed for games long enough to actually finish them most of the time. But in this case, I beat it 4 times, back to back to back to back. I don't know if it was comforting to replay after getting familiar with the game's layout, but when I finally finished the game on hard mode in 2 days, I felt as though I needed to move on. It was also the day after that I had to pack up my PC, because I'd be on a plane in about 10 days and moving across the country. Permanently. But the fact that I've been abandoning games left and right and found this one engaging enough to play 4 times is a testament to how much I adored Resident Evil Remake. Heck, even my Steam 2025 replay claims that 17% of my Steam playtime was just on this one game alone. May. To new beginnings. The month of May was pretty slow because, well, I didn't play any video games this month outside of my last session of Resident Evil Remake, landing on the very first day of May. After packing up my stuff, the first week of the month was just trying to tie up loose ends and saying goodbyes. Not only that, but it took a lot longer for our stuff to arrive at our new place, leaving me with just the stuff I brought in my suitcase. I didn't even think to bring a handheld with me. I guess I could have played something on Steam on my laptop, but since it didn't have an actual graphics card in it, my options were pretty limited on what could run, as well as not having a controller on hand. But to be fair, there were a lot of logistics I had to attend to while settling in, so there wasn't much downtime either. But with the downtime I did have, my leisure time was spent going outside and touching some grass. June. We're so back. Once I got my stuff unpacked and settled in, it was almost June, and I was ready to go back to playing some games. At the tail end of May, I was back into Resident Evil 2 Remake with Leon on hard mode. All I have to say is, my god, the first Resident Evil Remake was a cakewalk compared to the number of times I died in the sequel on hard mode. It took some time, but finishing the challenge lifted such a weight off of me when it was finally done. Nearly every boss fight had me struggling, and even upon beating them, I had nearly nothing left for resources to move forward with. Almost every inch of progress was something I had to work for, with the death toll likely reaching the triple digits. Not only that, but I enabled ink ribbons, with the death bringing me to a loading screen rather than a continue, so I couldn't just save every few minutes. Sometimes a simple mistake would undo 20 to 30 minutes of progress because of all this. But after a little over a week of banging my head against the wall, it was done, and I could put the game to rest for a bit. Speaking of remakes, I did manage to pick up Silent Hill 2 Remake for sale on Steam shortly after. The month of June had me playing through the apartment section with some other games in between, but unfortunately, the game struggled to hold my attention. Jumping into Silent Hill 2 Remake after playing Resident Evil 2 Remake and many other RE titles in the past, this just wasn't doing it for me. Not only that, but the last time I played Silent Hill 2 OG on the PS2 was in late 2024, so the narrative was still fresh in my mind. It's not that the remake was a bad game, but I do have to say I think it was a bad remake if that makes sense. I did eventually finish the game, but it was such a long and tedious process with me questioning why I'm even playing it at times, since it wasn't fun compared to what I could be playing. Somewhere in between these horror remakes, I did squeeze in a little indie horror called Mouthwashing because of all the hype surrounding it. The overall story was above average for an indie horror, but I left the experience feeling a bit disappointed. I think this was due to the game being a walking sim for 90% of the runtime, and it felt more like a visual novel than an actual game, to which neither of these are really my thing. So if you did like mouthwashing, this is just a heads up of, I get it, but it's just not for me. I did enjoy the small section that had real gameplay mechanics, but outside of that, it felt like I was just playing it because it was hyped up in the first place, and not because I actually wanted to play it. Amidst all the horror games being played in June, there were 2 other games that I put some time into to change things up. The first of these 2 being Magic the Gathering, specifically the Final Fantasy set's limited events. I've been someone who's been in and out of Magic since 2013 and have accepted that I really only enjoy playing draft and sealed formats at this point, and log in to play maybe once a year or so. When I knew Final Fantasy was on Arena, I just had to get some rounds in. And man, this is some of the most fun I've ever had playing digital Magic the Gathering. This set is perfect for the limited environment, and once I blew through the gems I put in, I had to have some restraint and move on. The last game I played for the month was a forgotten RPG made by Alias called Suganai Atonement on the PS2. Even though I haven't played Expedition 33 yet, I'd have to describe the combat as Expedition 33 at home. You play as a warrior separated from his body, and to re-enter his body, you must possess sad people and fix their problems. In doing so, you play as a party of 1 person for the entire game across different characters, with a combat system where you are responsible for blocking, dodging, and parrying incoming attacks. Different types of guarding are assigned to the 4 face buttons, with each of them having benefits and drawbacks such as timing requirements, the amount of reduced damage, and gaining or losing points to your strike bar. This has been a comfort game I've picked up every now and then moving forward, chipping away at it slowly, not because I find it tedious like Silent Hill 2 Remake, but because it's a game I want to savor. Will I finish it in 2026? Most likely, yes. July. Can't win 'em all. July had me entering another quarterly close at work, so similar to the month of April, most of this month had extra hours at work. With that being said, the month of July was pretty slow for new games played, with some time allocated to Silent Hill 2 Remake and Suganai Atonement. In fact, there are only 2 new games being played in between, those being Final Fantasy V and Virago, both of which I only played for 1 sitting. For Final Fantasy V, I've heard a lot about the game's job system, and that intrigued me enough to give it a try. While I see why people enjoy the game, the story was much more lighthearted than the others in the series, which mind you isn't necessarily a bad thing. From playing it for about 2 hours, I got the gist of what the game was going for, and will consider returning to it at some point in the future. As for Virago, this was a random indie I picked up for about 99 cents or something. The game was short enough to beat in a single sitting, and having beaten it in under 2 hours, I could have gotten a Steam refund, but decided not to. Had I paid $5 or more, I'd be more inclined to do so. The game itself is really simple and quite broken at times, but has a dark narrative about child abduction and creepy men. I can at least appreciate the effort from an artistic standpoint, but since this is a video game, I have to judge it as such. It is a shame that something with such potential ended up being an overall half-baked experience shorter than most movies. Overall, July was not the best month for sitting down and actually enjoying video games. August. Old school. The month of August ended up being a better lineup for games. On the first of the month, I started up Silent Hill 1 and decided to play on Next Sphere mode, bumping the difficulty to hard mode. There is an option for an additional ammo multiplier, but I didn't know about this until I started playing. But even if I did, I'd probably opt out of it anyways. After beating Resident Evil 2 Remake on hard, I thought, hey, this shouldn't be too bad. After all, Silent Hill games tend to be on the easier side. Yeah, this was a rough time. So much so that I wrote out an entire script to make a video on this experience, so you should subscribe if you want to see something in 2026. So to not give too much away on this one, I died a lot, but at least it was less than Resident Evil 2 Remake. Moving on to something more calming was Resident Evil 2 OG. Here I played on Leon's Scenario A campaign relatively quickly. The playthrough was pretty easy all things considered, with a few great jump scares. Not to mention the most satisfying shotgun shots I've ever experienced in a video game. Wanting to play through Claire's B scenario right away, I ran into a problem. See, Resident Evil 2 on PS1 is a 2-disc game, and somehow I never noticed that I only had Leon's disc when I picked up the game for $25 back in 2019 at a retro game store. Unfortunately for now, I had to move on to something else while I ordered a copy of Claire's disc off eBay, which had some issues that we'll talk about later. Outside of that issue, I thoroughly enjoyed the short run of Resident Evil 2, which furthered my appreciation for the remake. Outside of the PS1 horror games, I started up Star Ocean: The Last Hope for a bit, only to realize that it wasn't as much fun as I remembered. I already didn't care too much for the story, which for an RPG is sometimes a death sentence, but wanted another Star Ocean experience after playing Till the Ends of Time. I did manage to get about 7 to 8 hours in before abandoning it sometime in September because it was too much of a drag to play in 2025 when I had a laundry list of better RPGs that I haven't played yet. The combat was fine but less innovative than its predecessor. Besides chipping away at Suganai Atonement and Silent Hill 2 Remake, God, this game drags on for a horror game. The last game that I played at the end of August was A Night of Halo 2. While it was a fun time and a blast from the past, I didn't really feel compelled to play anymore after about an hour of fun. I would like to go back and play the Halo trilogy again at some point, but for now, it's just not its time. September. Frustrations. Getting closer to the end of the year, the list of titles is starting to ramp up. Now that I'm more settled into my new place and started getting used to waking up at 5:30 a.m. to work on East Coast time while living on the West, I've been more efficient with my time. At the start of the month, I casually started playing Pokemon Yellow purely as a way to relax. A few play sessions of Pokemon were nice, but I pulled the classic, get to the SSN before abandoning the game. I think finishing a Gen 1 game as an adult was fun for the first time after 15 plus years, but even with my last playthrough being almost 10 years ago, I think I've still had my fill for a while. That and I hate using Pikachu for the whole game, making me wish I played Red or Blue instead. But hey, at least he's cute though. Around the time I dropped it, I started playing the Pokemon for adults, that being Shin Megami Tensei 4 on the DS. It's a game I stopped playing halfway through a few years ago for some reason, and at this point I needed to start from the beginning to remind myself what happened. The story and gameplay are fantastic from what I've seen. This ended up getting dropped when I realized that the recordings would freeze up about 5 minutes into me booting up the game except for the very first recording session. This is after getting about 10 hours into the game, which was a great 10 hours mind you, but when I realized that more than 90% of the gameplay that I've gotten through so far was footage that I couldn't use, I ended up rage quitting the game. In my opinion, the gameplay from mainline Shin Megami Tensei games is far better than Persona's, but Persona definitely has better writing. I'll be sure to come back to this in the future, but when? Not sure yet. Maybe after another couple of years where I completely forget everything. And speaking of games I keep abandoning, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. Not Re-Chain of Memories, no. We're talking about the GBA Chain of Memories. I started playing this again back in 2024, as I'm slowly going through the entire Kingdom Hearts series before Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out. Hell, I haven't even played Kingdom Hearts 3 yet because I spent nearly half my damn life waiting for this thing to come out in development hell, and I don't want to be disappointed, which I feel like I will be. I was actually pretty deep into Chain of Memories with all the Disney worlds being finished. I played through a few short sessions and enjoyed the combat system that people would like to hate on. I chose to play the GBA version since I felt like the 2.5D map style was how the fighting was meant to be handled and feels more natural than Re-Chain of Memories on PS2. The main issue I had with the gameplay loop was how to unlock doors. Anytime you tried to enter into a new room, you had to use a combination of cards that you would unlock from fighting that had a number, color, and effect assigned to them. The requirements for most doors were pretty simple, like using a card with the number equal or greater than 2, which is like 90% of the cards that you have. That wasn't really the issue though. The real problem came when you needed a card that's both specific in color and number. If you do a decent amount of fighting, you'll usually have at least one card that'll work. But if you don't have a red card with number 1 when you need it, then have fun grinding for almost an hour looking for one. I can at least say that the combat was still fun, even when grinding, since making cool card combos was a novel enough concept to hold my attention for the whole process. Did I finish the game? No, but it's going to be done, trust me. I really want to play Kingdom Hearts 2, and I'm trying to get through this one first. Ultimately, my attention was taken by Resident Evil 2 Remake again, but this time going through Claire's route on normal mode for a change. After the hell that I went through on hard mode with Leon, this was a bit of a breeze. A fun breeze, might I add. In addition to that, I also played some Mercenaries mode afterwards too, beating the Kendo route after a handful of tries. Transitioning from here was Resident Evil 3 Remake on hard mode. Earlier in the year, I wanted to try and beat all the Resident Evil Remake games on hard mode to see how difficult they were compared to normal mode. I was a bit nervous going into this after the insanity I put myself through with the second entry, but overall, it wasn't that bad, all things considered. In some ways though, it was worse. Depending on my resources at any given time, I'd be stuck on sections where I had to run through nearly perfectly to not get destroyed, with a lot of it coming down to the dodge system. But the part that made this so bad was how damn annoying Nemesis is in this game. I swear, there are times where Nemesis can grab you from far away and there's literally nothing you can do about it. Sadly, the best parts of the game were when Nemesis wasn't there, but slowly over time, we crawled to the finish line. I was so relieved and so excited to be done with this one that I immediately booted up Resident Evil 4 that same day on hard mode to finish up the challenge. And here I thought this wouldn't be so bad. But yeah, the opening section was rough, especially since my hands were still operating like Part 3. I had to remind myself that there was no dodge mechanic and that all the buttons were mapped differently. That, and I really wish I found the shotgun during the opening section before everyone left for bingo. Since it was the end of the month at this point, I didn't make too much progress in Resident Evil 4, but did continue it next month. October. When all else fails, keep playing Resident Evil. Starting in October was continuing Resident Evil 4 Remake on and off throughout the entire month, with some games in between. The first in between game was trying old Mega Man again. Refer back to April to know how that went. Later on that same day, I switched to the title Hades. I was pretty hyped to play this game since I've heard so much good things about it, but sadly, I didn't really gel with it like I hoped I would. Having only given this roguelike about an hour of my time, I'll need to come back to it another time to give it a second chance. I can see the appeal though, and I don't think it's a bad game, but it's just one that I have to be in the mood for. The next game I played between Resident Evil 4 Remake sessions was Plague on PC. Now, I played this game a lot, and it's my go-to cell phone game anytime I have to fly on a plane. In fact, I'm pretty sure I got a few hours on it when I was flying back in May. I mainly wanted to see how it played on PC, and to be honest, I kinda prefer how it plays on the phone, and that's something you can't say too often. I only played for about an hour though before switching back to Resident Evil 4 Remake, except I finally got my copy of Claire's disc for Resident Evil 2. So why did it take almost 2 months for me to get this? Well, the first copy that I bought on eBay took over a month to make its way to me after ordering. Every time I checked the tracking, the package would be stuck in a single state, being shipped back and forth between the same two facilities. After waiting all this time, it finally showed up, and the case and disc were completely shattered. The seller shipped it in a basic jewel case with no bubble wrap or packaging materials for protection. Even before opening the package, I knew that it was broken because I could feel the shards shifting around the thin bubble mailer. Not sure if this has something to do with the delays or the constant shipping back and forth causing it to break. Either way, I got a full refund and bought another one that finally arrived. I was pumped to get back into this after finishing Leon's scenario in August and got right to it. Experiencing Claire's B scenario for the OG after switching back and forth with the remake over the last few months was really something special. Seeing the dual routes in its best form, knowing that taking only one item from the locker as Leon 2 months ago allowed Claire to get the other in this playthrough. This was one of those games I ended up binge playing, beating it in only 2 long gaming sessions. While it sounds like we're deep into October, we're only just starting the second week. Yeah, all 4 of those games were played in about a 1 week span. Unfortunately, however, it was at this point in the month that my Q3 sprint at work was starting up, so not much more time was spent gaming overall. During this time, I would squeeze in some sessions of Resident Evil 4 Remake, making it to Krauser's knife fight by the end of the month. Problem is, it's the last time I played it. Will I finish it in 2026? Yeah, it won't take long before I get back into this, but at the time, I really wanted to play Resident Evil 3 on PS1, taking my attention near the end of the month going into November. Technically, I did start this game on hard mode too, because, well, there's only easy or hard mode in this. Literally no normal mode. Like, huh? Excuse me? Despite it being a pretty short game, I played this one like a slow burn in contrast to how I played Claire's route only a few weeks prior. I did enjoy how the series mixed things up with this entry, and truly understood why the hate for Remake was so significant. Nemesis here feels terrifying yet fair, with the decision making and randomness making the entire experience feel unpredictable. November. Preparing for the new year. Most of November had me playing Resident Evil 3 on and off, with the credits rolling by the end of the month. This marked the last Resident Evil game of the year, a series I did not plan on dedicating so much time to playing, but hey, it was a good time. Honestly, with how diverse the games feel from one another, I wouldn't be surprised if next year had much of the same. Besides this, however, I didn't really play anything until the latter half of the month, besides some couch games like Streets of Rage 4 and Mario Party 4 with some family that were in town. This was partially due to me changing jobs, mostly so I could work on West Coast time, as well as some issues I had with the company that I left. But as the year was drawing close to an end, I made the decision to try and wrap up a few games before the end of the year. I booted Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories up again, but after grinding for some cards to get some doors open, I shifted priorities to a more pressing matter. I may have been near the end of playing as Sora, but since I'm also going to be playing through Riku's story, I'm really not as close to finishing it like I thought I was. Trust me, it will be done so I can continue on to Kingdom Hearts 2, but for now, back on the back burner it goes. So after more than half a year, we booted Persona 3 Reload back up. I kept telling myself it would be a quick finish because we already passed New Year's within the game's calendar. But holy shit, I did not expect this last month to drag on as much as it did. Looking back at my footage, it took almost 10 in-game hours from reaching New Year's to rolling the credits. Having played the PSP version in the past and knowing the story, most of that stretch was not very enjoyable outside of fighting the final string of bosses. And even then, I cleared them out without too much trouble. Will I go back and play the DLC? Maybe, if it goes on sale for like $5. Nearing the end of Persona 3 Reload, I started up a few Sonic titles to see how the franchise has evolved, starting with Sonic Mania. Definitely a whimsical experience filled with callbacks and even includes a mini-boss where you play around a mean bean machine. I can see why fans praise this game since it's a nice love letter to the 90s fans with both old and new bonus minigames. I'll be sure to come back to this another day though, as I moved on to trying Sonic Frontiers. It didn't take too long before I understood the 7 out of 10 rating, with some of the clunky gameplay mechanics and environmental glitches. The open world aspect was surprisingly the best part, with me blindly running around and climbing to new areas. The levels themselves felt unfinished however, which was a bit of a letdown. Overall, a respectable game in its own right, but not something I'll be playing for a while. During my hunt for the next game that I wanted to play, I put in a few hours of Persona 4 Golden on PC while multitasking, mainly because I wanted to get through the intro. Admittedly, I went in without the intent of actually playing the game right away, but wanted to get to a point where if I did want to jump into the main game, I can, and it's ready to go. You can also tell how out of it I was at the time, since I even made a typo in my own name. The last game I decided to flirt with in November was Halo Wars, as I remember really enjoying it back on the Xbox 360. Considering RTS games are better suited for PC, I gave it a go. After finishing a few missions, I felt like the game was a bit dated, with issues controlling different units across the map. Nevertheless, I did have days where it's all I thought about during the workday, wanting to jump back in right away, so, that's a plus. Some of the play session did seep into December, but not much more than that. Will I finish playing this in 2026? Not sure, but I'll likely pick it up on and off over time. December. Learning to have fun again. Starting the month with a bit of Halo Wars, that quickly fell off when I decided to pick up Celeste for the first time. After hearing the hype for so long, I gave it a go, but unlike other hype games, I tempered my expectations so I wouldn't be disappointed like I thought it would be. But man, I was so wrong about this one. To put it simply, this game single-handedly restored my faith in new games, being able to retain that magic from so long ago. The crisp mechanics coupled with challenging obstacles that tested your skills in both planning and execution had me physically reacting with excitement after getting a collectible that took me about 100 tries. This is a game that will be finished, and like many of the games played in the month of December, this game has not been abandoned. But as of the time of writing, I'm roughly halfway through while splitting time with a few other titles. But in an effort of searching for other games to try, I'm surprised I abandoned this next title as soon as I did. Metaphor ReFantazio, a game I've been wanting to play since release, was recently picked up during a Steam sale, with me giving it a go in early December. Now don't get me wrong, this doesn't seem like a bad game, but right now I'm just not looking to immerse myself in a brand new world with so many new mechanics to learn. I was kinda hoping that the battle mechanics would be a little more similar to Persona and SMT, but considering they seem pretty different, I'm going to give this a pass for right now. Currently, I'd rather continue playing Celeste. It's more so the pick up and play nature of Celeste that's got me excited over playing something like Metaphor right now. I gave Metaphor a few hours and I'm properly into the main game, but I'm putting this one on pause until I'm ready for this type of experience. Instead, I booted up SMT5 Vengeance, a game I'm a bit more familiar with, having played the vanilla version, but this time around, I'm playing on hard mode. This was the right call since I'm still having a great time with the brutal challenge that Persona couldn't deliver. That and the exploration and platforming is a nice change of pace for a JRPG to have. But between Celeste and SMT5 Vengeance, there's one more game that I picked up in 2025 that's still being played currently. Silent Hill 4 The Room on OG Xbox. Quick story on this, I bought an Xbox and a copy of this game because the PS2 version cost more than the Xbox and Xbox game combined. Issue being that when I got the Xbox in late August, the disc tray didn't work. After tinkering with it and getting a refund for the system, I brought it to a repair shop that took months to get back to me with a quote of $200 to go through with the repair, but that wasn't even a guaranteed fix. Considering the consoles go for about half that price on eBay, I declined and simply bought another one. And now, here we are. As of right now, I'm about halfway through, and simply put, I understand why it's loved and hated. When I first started it up, I felt more frustrated with gameplay than anything, but the more I played it, the more I got into it. Much like I did with Silent Hill 2 OG the first time I played it, I could probably binge this game in 1 to 2 long sittings if I had the day to dedicate to it. Gameplay wise, it does feel inferior to the first 3 games, but the story so far has me intrigued. Oh, and I almost forgot, I did play Yu-Gi-Oh! The early days for a bit. Yeah, half these games are unplayable nonsense, and only a handful are actually worth your time. Fun if you want to play some low-level old-school Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know what else you want me to say about it, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! And that right there is the year of 2025. Overall, I played a little over 40 games this year to varying degrees. If you're going back and counting what I've listed and are like, wait a minute, that's less than 40, then here's why. You know how I brushed by Mario Party 4 and Streets of Rage 4? Those were games I didn't record, but I at least knew when I played them, so I decided to at least mention it. Did I play Smash Bros this year? I actually don't know. Memories don't come with timestamps, so it's difficult to pinpoint exact dates the further out I go. At one point during the year, my wife and I were playing a bunch of games on the SNES Mini, but I don't remember every game that was played or what month it was in. Not to mention playing Tekken and Astrobots at a friend's house, but did that take place this year or last year? I don't quite remember. Between not knowing the month, not having the footage, and some games only being played for less than an hour, definitely puts me over 40 titles when counting every game that I didn't include. 4 titles, specifically Resident Evil, soaked up most of my time and was honestly the most fun I've had during the year in terms of games. JRPGs were a close second, but with varying degrees of enjoyment. Celeste takes the title for the biggest surprise of the year, being a game that just kinda came out of nowhere for me. My Steam's most played games were Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake, then Silent Hill 2 Remake. There seems to be a pattern here. Considering a significant amount of playtime was to remakes and enhanced releases is quite telling about the current state of modern gaming, but looking at what I allocated my time to, I'm definitely part of that problem. Not only that, but tallying up every game that I rolled credits on during the year only allotted to 12 titles in total. Granted, games like Magic the Gathering don't have an end to it, but Plague only took about 15 minutes to wipe humanity off the map, so we can just call it a wash. If there is one thing I've learned throughout this entire reflection, is don't overthink it. Play what you enjoy, and don't be afraid to try something new. I'm excited for what I'll be playing in 2026, and we'll make another year-end video like this annually if there's demand for it. But with that being said, let me know in the comments what you played in 2025, and remember to give this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more. I've been your host, Fake Alias, and I hope you have a great 2026.